The envelope was thick, cream-colored, gold-trimmed, sealed with red wax. My name, Miss Sarah Whitmore, was inked in elegant calligraphy that I was sure Chelsea hadn't written herself. She probably hired someone, or worse, had it printed by a machine that mimicked personal effort. Everything about it screamed curated perfection, a glossy cover over something hollow. I stood by my tiny kitchen counter, a chipped mug of coffee cooling beside the sink. Sunlight spilled in through the window, catching the gold lettering. It was a beautiful day. Too beautiful for what this envelope stirred inside me. I hesitated, then cracked the wax. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Liam Whitmore and Chelsea Harper, to be held at the Harper family estate on May 17th. Garden ceremony at 3 p.m. Formal attire requested. Champagne reception to follow. The Harper family estate. Of course. I could already see the champagne flutes, the white rose archways, the bored waitstaff serving canapes to people who hadn't worked a real job in years. My stomach twisted. Liam and I hadn't spoken in nearly 2 years. Not since Dad died. I remember that day too clearly. The funeral, the rain, the silence. Liam and I had exchanged few words then, mostly sharp, bitter ones. I had questioned how fast he moved on, how Chelsea seemed more interested in curating the floral arrangements than grieving our father. He had accused me of being judgmental and jealous. I had walked away from the cemetery before the final prayer. We never truly repaired it. And yet, here was the invitation. Thick, fancy, and mocking. I stood in my small apartment, the air too still. Was this a peace offering, a guilt trip, or worse, a setup? Still, part of me wanted to go. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the foolish hope that Liam missed me, that he wanted me there despite everything. Or maybe I just needed closure. The wedding was 2 weeks away. I RSVP'd yes before I could talk myself out of it. 2 weeks later, I stood in front of my mirror wearing the best dress I owned. Navy blue, floor length, nothing flashy, but it flattered my shape and looked almost new. I'd even gone to the trouble of getting my hair professionally styled, a rare indulgence. I wasn't aiming to impress anyone, but I also refused to look like the out-of-place charity case Chelsea always painted me as. As I drove up to the Harper estate, I felt my heart thudding harder. The estate looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine. White hedges trimmed like sculptures, flower arrangements bursting in symmetrical colors, a bubbling marble fountain in the roundabout. Expensive cars lined the circular driveway like trophies. Mercedes, Lexus, something that looked like a Bentley. My old Corolla let out a groan as I parked near the back, almost hiding in shame. A valet gave me a tight smile as he took my keys. He didn't comment, but the look said enough. I smoothed my dress and followed the signs toward the garden. It was like stepping into a dream. Dozens of guests milled about, each dressed in designer suits and dresses. The garden was sprawling and perfectly manicured. A soft classical quartet played near the rose arch. Every detail screamed money. And at the center of it all, Chelsea. She spotted me immediately. Her eyes raked over my dress, my shoes, my minimal jewelry. Her expression didn't change, but I could feel the flicker of judgment behind her perfect smile. "Sarah!" she cooed, approaching like a bride who had just been told there was a spill on her satin train. "I wasn't sure you'd actually come. Isn't it just lovely here?" I forced a smile. "It's beautiful. Congratulations." She leaned in, brushing air against my cheek in a mock kiss. Her perfume was heavy. Vanilla, maybe gardenia. Almost nauseating. "I'm glad you made the effort," she said, lips still curved in politeness, voice laced with something sharper. "It's just so important to Liam that his whole family be here, even the distant branches." I bit down a retort. She wanted a reaction. I wouldn't give her one. From behind her, Liam appeared, tall, handsome as ever, in his fitted tux. His eyes lit up when he saw me. "Sarah!" He pulled me into a hug, warm and familiar. "I was hoping you'd come." "I wouldn't miss it," I murmured. And for a moment, I meant it. Chelsea looped her arm through his. Isn't she sweet? Always so unassuming. That word landed like a slap. Liam didn't react, or maybe he didn't hear it. He just smiled, and the moment passed. I was assigned to table 12, in the back, near the kitchen doors. Not with family, not with friends, just a table full of polite strangers, and a few vaguely familiar Harper cousins. The reception hall was like something out of a dream. Crystal chandeliers, gold leaf centerpieces, floral runners that probably cost more than my rent. I sipped water and tried to ignore the weight in my stomach. I didn't belong here. I was background noise. I listened as guests laughed and clinked glasses. Every so often, someone at another table would glance toward me, their smile tightening as if trying to place me, the outsider. Is that Liam's sister? Someone whispered not so quietly. I thought she lived in a studio somewhere. She's like an illustrator or something. For kids? I bit the inside of my cheek, hard. Still, I stayed. Because Liam had smiled when he saw me. Because no matter how many times Chelsea sharpened her claws beneath that porcelain smile, I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of running away. Not again. Dinner had just been served. Filet mignon or wild mushroom risotto, depending on your dietary alignment with the kingdom of cows. I had chosen the vegetarian option, and it was actually decent, though I suspect the flavor had more to do with butter and less to do with mushrooms. I had just managed a small smile to myself when I heard the clink of a fork on glass. And then her voice, sweet, polished, weaponized. Ladies and gentlemen, Chelsea said, rising from the sweetheart table. She held the mic with one manicured hand, her champagne flute held high in the other. If I could have your attention for just a moment before dessert, I promise I'll be brief, even if my stories never are. A polite laugh from the crowd. I braced myself. First of all, thank you. This day has been a dream. Literally, I started planning it before Liam even proposed, she said with a wink. Manifestation works, girls. More laughter. I glanced at Liam. He was smiling, but there was a flicker of something behind his eyes. Tiredness? Regret? I couldn't tell. Chelsea continued. Tonight, we're surrounded by love, friends, family, and in-laws too, some of whom have traveled so far to be here. Liam's dear Aunt Marcy flew in from Florida, even though she's still convinced TSA is run by lizard people. Laughter again. Aunt Marcy, bless her, raised her glass and hollered, They are! Chelsea smirked. And of course we're joined by Liam's sweet little sister, Sarah. I froze mid-sip. Her eyes locked onto mine, the grin widening. She's an illustrator. Isn't that adorable? She said. She draws little pictures for children's books, which is perfect because she's always had that whimsical, childlike spirit. Like a pocket-sized dreamer. A few scattered laughs. I smiled stiffly, my cheeks burning. And, Chelsea added, stepping closer to the center, it takes courage, doesn't it? To live in a shoebox apartment and chase art when the rest of us are chasing rent payments and deadlines. I think we can all learn something from Sarah, like how to stretch $1 into a week's worth of meals. This time, the laughter was fuller, crueler. I laughed too, quietly. Not because it was funny, but because I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing me squirm. And yet, she said with faux sweetness, she still manages to show up looking so determined. Her eyes scanned my dress again. Resilient, like an Etsy phoenix rising from clearance rack ashes. A few gasps mixed with laughs. Liam's expression shifted, just slightly. And don't worry, Chelsea added. We made sure to serve a vegetarian option for Sarah, because we all know starving artists have their preferences. This time, I caught Liam glancing sideways at her. A crease had formed between his brows. He wasn't laughing. She raised her glass again. To family, the ones we choose, and the ones who come in unexpected packaging. That was my cue. Packaging, like I'd been delivered by mistake. The crowd clinked glasses and cheered. I simply nodded, holding my water glass up as if I, too, had enjoyed that roast. She handed the mic off to the MC like a Broadway actress exiting stage right. Triumphant. I took a slow breath and focused on my dessert. Something creamy and raspberry-centered. I didn't taste any of it. Wow, the man beside me said under his breath. I think his name was Greg. Or Todd. Someone who managed rich people's retirement plans. I'm not sure if that was a toast or a roast. He chuckled awkwardly. Both, I said, not looking up. A toast roast, like a marshmallow that's on fire. Hey, he said, trying to be kind. For what it's worth, I think it's cool you're an illustrator. My nephew reads some of those books, the ones with animals that wear suspenders and learn life lessons. You ever do those? Yeah, I said. That's my niche. Morally sound squirrels. He laughed. Sounds more useful than a hedge fund. I cracked a smile. Liam eventually found me near the terrace an hour later. I'd taken to watching the koi pond like it held all the answers to life's injustices. Hey, he said gently. Hey, I replied. You okay? I shrugged. I survived. You didn't tell me Chelsea was auditioning for a Netflix stand-up special. He winced. Yeah, I didn't know she'd do that. I looked at him, wondering if that was true. Liam had always been charming, but lately he felt like a politician, always smiling, always diplomatic. She's nervous, he said. Hosting a big wedding like this? There's a lot of pressure. Right, I said. Some people get sweaty palms. She gets sarcastic with a microphone. I'm sorry, he said, more sincerely this time. I looked down at my reflection in the pond. It's fine. I'm used to being the punchline. I just didn't expect to be the wedding punchline. He hesitated. You've always been tougher than you look. That almost made me tear up. Almost. Then, before I could say anything else, someone called for him. A groomsman with a crooked bow tie. Liam gave me a pat on the shoulder and jogged back inside. And I stood there alone, listening to the music swell and watching koi fish swirl beneath the lily pads. They were probably judging me, too. The Harper estate had at least 3 gardens, one for photos, one for cocktails, and one that existed purely to make you feel underdressed. I found myself wandering through the latter sometime after the cake was cut, and the DJ started playing hits from the early 2000s, as if Mr. Brightside might spiritually cleanse the room. Guests twirled and toasted beneath string lights, while I took refuge beside a marble cherub spitting water into a fish-shaped basin. I wasn't trying to sulk. I just didn't want to risk another encounter with someone who thought I was the help. Seriously? 3 people had already asked me for refills. From behind a manicured hedge, I overheard Chelsea talking to her bridesmaids. Well, whispering loudly, the way rich girls do when they want to be overheard, but still pretend they're too classy for confrontation. She showed up in that dress? One of them hissed. Isn't it like a prom throwback? I mean, Sarah's sweet, Chelsea replied, but she's always been a little earnest, like a Disney sidekick that got lost on her way to the ball. Laughter. She's the type who'd bring a notebook to a bar, or knit during a house fire. More laughter. I swear, Chelsea continued, I only invited her because Liam insisted. She's like that one dusty box in your attic. You can't bring yourself to throw it out, but you're not exactly proud to show it to guests. I took a deep breath and stared at the cherub. Don't do it, I whispered to myself. You're better than this. But was I? Because truth be told, I was very close to weaponizing that fish fountain. Instead, I turned and walked back into the hall, reminding myself that I came here for Liam. For closure. Not to slap the bride with her own bouquet, tempting as it was. Back inside, the dance floor was heating up. Chelsea was front and center, surrounded by friends, twirling like a sponsored Instagram reel. She laughed, she posed, she air-kissed. The photographer trailed her like she was about to announce a new makeup line. Meanwhile, I sipped my 3rd ginger ale and found myself face to face with Chelsea's cousin, Brent. A walking wallet with too much gel in his hair, and an aura of inherited arrogance. "So," he said, sidling up beside me, "you're the artsy one, huh?" "Depends on the day," I replied, polite but not encouraging. "Cool, cool. I always thought artists were, you know, free-spirited, flexible." He gave me a wink that made me want to sterilize my eyeballs. "I'm just saying," he continued, "weddings are romantic, right? All that love in the air, and nothing to do after the bouquet toss." "Actually, I'm here for the cake," I deadpanned, "not the cousin-on-cousin action." His face fell. "You know we're not technically—" "Goodbye, Brent." I walked away and made a mental note to never come within 6 feet of anyone named Brent again. Around 10 p.m., the DJ asked everyone to gather for a final round of speeches, the ones where champagne gets warm and truths start to leak out. I found a seat at the edge of the crowd, where I could make a quick exit if things turned ugly. Liam stood up first, smiling shyly as the room quieted. "I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he began. "It means the world to us." His voice wavered slightly, but it was warm. Genuine. He talked about meeting Chelsea in college, about their first awkward date, about how she challenged him and made him laugh. People swooned. Chelsea dabbed her eyes, a practiced motion that somehow didn't smudge her mascara. "And I want to thank my sister," Liam added, turning slightly. "Sarah." My heart froze. "You guys probably don't know this," he said, "but Sarah used to draw superheroes when we were kids. She'd tape them to my bedroom door and name each one after a household item. I had Captain Spatula guarding me from nightmares for 3 years." Laughter rippled through the room. "She always made things brighter," he said, voice softer now. "Even when things got hard. Even when we lost our dad." He paused. For a second, the room seemed to hold its breath. I wouldn't be who I am without her. I forgot that for a while. I think I let a lot of things distract me. But Sarah, I see you. I always did. Something in my throat twisted. "Thanks for coming tonight," he finished. "Thanks for staying, even when it wasn't easy." He raised his glass. "To my sister." And the room, full of curated strangers and champagne snobs, echoed him. "To Sarah." I blinked quickly. Didn't cry. Wouldn't give Chelsea the satisfaction. But I did raise my glass back, and Liam smiled like the big brother I remembered from so long ago. And just like that, the cracks in my heart began to seal. Just as Liam set the mic down and returned to the sweetheart table, the DJ's voice came on again, upbeat and obnoxiously enthusiastic. "And now, the bride has one more surprise for everyone tonight." Cue polite applause, polite dread. Chelsea stood, once again, beaming like a pageant winner and grabbing the mic like it owed her rent money. "Hi again. I know. I already said a lot, but come on. What's a wedding without a little fun?" The crowd cheered. The wine had been flowing long enough for that line to work. She gave Liam a quick peck on the cheek, and then, heaven help us, she reached under the table and pulled out a poster board. "Oh, no. Since we're all family now," she said, grinning, "I thought it would be fun to share a few throwback pics of some of Liam's favorite people, starting with his little sister." A giant photo of me appeared on the screen. I was 12, braces, pigtails, dressed in a homemade wizard costume I'd worn way too often that year. The caption read, "Sarah Spelling Trouble, 2007. Laughter erupted. Chelsea flipped to the next. Me again. College, sleep-deprived, eyeliner smudged like a raccoon in mourning. Caption, "Art students need sleep too." I wasn't mortified yet. That came with the third one. An old photo from a family beach day. Me wearing a tankini 2 sizes too small, chasing a seagull with a churro in one hand. Caption, "The Churro Avenger." "Chelsea," Liam said quietly. I could see it in his eyes now. The shift. The discomfort. But Chelsea was just getting started. She raised her voice again. "You guys, she's come a long way, hasn't she? Let's give it up for growth." And then she said it. The line that froze the room. Let's be honest. Liam got the brains, I got the looks, and Sarah. Well, she's got potential. It echoed, like a slap. A very public, very glossy, very amplified slap. The room quieted. For the first time that night, the laughter died. People shifted awkwardly in their chairs. Forks clinked. Someone coughed. And Liam stood up. He didn't snatch the mic. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. He simply walked to the front of the room, took the microphone gently out of Chelsea's hand, and said, "Enough." Silence. Complete. Absolute. You could have heard a canapé hit the carpet. Chelsea blinked. "Babe, I was just—" Liam raised a hand. "I don't know what this was supposed to be," he said, calm but sharp. "But it's not funny, it's not loving, and it's not okay." People looked at each other, unsure if they were witnessing a speech or a revolution. "She's my sister," he said, turning to the room. "She's talented. She's kind. She's been through more than any of you know, and instead of celebrating her, we've laughed at her." He turned back to Chelsea. "You don't get to belittle someone just because they don't fit your mold. Sarah is exactly who she's supposed to be. And if this is how you treat family, then maybe we need to rethink how we define that word." Chelsea stared at him, stunned. Liam handed the mic back to the DJ. Then he walked off the stage, not dramatically, not in anger, just with purpose, and he walked straight toward me. "Come on," he said. I looked around. Half the room looked frozen. The other half looked like they just watched an episode of Real Housewives, Wedding Edition. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Out of here," he said. "For air, for peace, for tacos. Anything but this." I stood. And as I did, the crowd parted. No one stopped us. A few people even gave me sympathetic smiles. Aunt Marcy whispered, "Good for you," as I passed. Outside, the cool night air hit like a reset button. We walked past the koi pond, past the cherub fountain, past the artificial perfection of the Harper estate. And when we reached the edge of the parking lot, Liam finally sighed. "I'm sorry," he said. I shook my head. "You didn't mock me." "No, but I let it happen." We stood there for a moment. "You know," I said, trying to lighten the mood, "when you married Chelsea, I didn't expect you'd get so many personality upgrades thrown in." He laughed, the tension cracking. "I don't know what happens next," he admitted, "but I know I can't keep pretending everything's okay when it isn't." I looked up at him. "You were brave in there." He smiled. "You were brave all night." I just finally caught up. And for the first time in a long time, we were siblings again. No speeches, no spotlight. Just Sarah and Liam, under a sky too vast for wedding drama. By the time we returned, the mood inside had shifted. The music was softer, and the energy had noticeably dipped. Some guests lingered by the bar in awkward silence, unsure if they were still supposed to be partying or politely evacuating the emotional fallout. Chelsea had vanished, either in the bridal suite or somewhere nursing her pride with a flute of Dom Perignon. Liam turned to me. "Do you want to go back in?" I raised an eyebrow. "Do you?" We shared a laugh, but then he added more seriously, "I think I need to say something, not just for you. For myself, too." I followed him back inside. He didn't ask for the mic this time, just stepped up to the front of the room again, clinked his glass with a fork, and waited for silence. People turned slowly, still not sure if this was an encore or a train wreck. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Liam said, "but I just want to clarify something." He took a breath. "Weddings are about love, right? And if we're honest, the kind of love that matters most isn't the glitzy, perform for Instagram kind. It's the love that shows up when no one's watching. The kind that listens, that apologizes, that defends." He turned, locking eyes with me. "My sister taught me that kind of love." I blinked hard. She's always been herself, even when people laughed, even when they didn't understand her. And instead of being celebrated, she was mocked tonight. Not just by Chelsea, but by others who laughed because it was easier than being kind. There were shifting feet, avoidant eyes. "I'm not perfect either. I let it happen for too long. I thought keeping the peace meant staying quiet. But peace that cost your integrity? He shook his head. That's not peace. That's cowardice. There was an electricity in the air now, a rare moment of brutal honesty, like someone finally opening the window in a stale room. He looked at the efficient, who had returned to his corner near the bar with a mini slider in one hand. I know we already exchanged vows earlier today, Liam said, but if you'll indulge me. The efficient nodded slowly. Liam turned to me again. I vow to be the kind of brother who has your back, not just in public, but in private. I vow to remember who we were as kids and never let adulthood make me forget it. I vow to speak up, even when it's uncomfortable. A hush blanketed the room, and then, to everyone's surprise, he faced the guests. And to everyone else, if you've ever felt like you didn't belong, like you were the joke at someone else's party, I hope you find the courage to stand tall anyway. Because the world needs more people like my sister and fewer who laugh at others just to feel taller. That was the moment the room truly shifted. Aunt Marcy clapped first, then Uncle Ben. Then a trickle of applause turned into a wave. Liam came back to his seat beside me, a little flushed, but standing taller than he had all night. You've got a lot of nerve, making a speech like that, I teased, nudging him. You trying to make me cry in front of Brent? If Brent so much as looks at you again, I'll revoke his invitation retroactively. We laughed, and for the first time in hours, the air didn't feel so stiff. Chelsea reappeared an hour later, her hair slightly mussed, her expression brittle. She didn't say much, just walked up to me, clutching the edges of her perfectly tailored dress. I didn't mean to be cruel, she said softly, voice barely above a whisper. I thought it would come off as playful. Mocking someone in front of 100 people doesn't scream playful, I replied, tone neutral. She looked down. Liam's right. I crossed a line. I didn't say anything at first. Part of me wanted to twist the knife, deliver a line that would haunt her wedding album captions forever. But instead, I sighed. You don't need to explain. Just think about how you'd feel if someone did it to your sister or your daughter. Her expression cracked, ever so slightly. She nodded once, and that was the last time we spoke that night. The party eventually recovered, mostly thanks to an open bar and a nostalgic playlist that included Hey Ya and Crazy in Love. But something had changed, not just between Liam and me, but inside me. I no longer felt invisible. I wasn't someone's punchline, I was someone's person. A week later, Liam showed up at my apartment with a box. Found this in my old stuff, he said, setting it on the coffee table. Inside were drawings, old ones, crayon versions of Captain Spatula and Miss Microwave and the Forkinator. I laughed so hard I snorted. You kept these? He smiled. Always. Then he pulled out a fresh sketchbook. On the front, he'd written in messy black marker, the next chapter. You ready to fill it? I looked at the blank pages, at my brother, and for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of starting over. Yeah, I said. Let's write something real. Have you ever encountered similar incident before? If this story resonates with you, hit the like button and leave your story in the comments section. And of course, subscribe to my channel for more real, raw, and ridiculous stories.